now it is. You can see it's open.
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to ask you in the first instance.
Well, hello, Kathy. It's good to see you.
And you too.
And it's
I'm
July
rude, aren't I?
2017, and it's a nice day outside.
It is rather.
I'll be going down to Marlborough to see Christine,
Okay.
part of the basis volunteer crew
Okay.
for cricket.
For
They're
cricket.
playing cricket
Okay.
in Marlborough,
All right.
or I would say Marlborough.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So I just want to ask you if you have any memories of the time that you couldn't remember when you were a small child in Ireland.
well, there's a bit of a contradiction in terms there, Kathy, because if I can't remember, how can I tell you about it?
No, I'm asking you if you have any memories of it yet. Memories tend to surface.
Well, I was abducted when I was about 6,
Okay.
and that's all I know.
Oh.
But when I was 5, roughly, I was hit very badly by a iron gate,
Oh.
which is the first attempt to bump me off.
Oh.
Yeah, big iron gate. And it was something my father was oiling, these big iron gates, and we were playing tennis. And because it was tennis time, Wimbledon time,
Yeah.
and of course, every little kid, he can't play tennis, so I was a ball boy, so I was the most important, because when you're a little kid,
Yeah.
the most important thing that you identify with is a ball boys.
Yes.
Ball boys at tennis, that means I'm in Wimbledon, I'm playing tennis, and I've got to get the ball.
Yeah.
So they were playing tennis, and like all families playing tennis, it's not really tennis, it's just messing about with a tennis racket
Yeah.
and things. And when later on, when we moved into my grandfather's house, we did have a tennis court, and that's where I put my antennas, when I tested my antennas for the transmitters.
Okay.
And we had a barbecue on the tennis court. And in the year 2017, that's all been refurbished, because my grandfather's house has all been sold, obviously, like 10, 15, 12 years ago, and it made the whole tennis court available now in Lurgan. You can go to Lurgan now to the Domain, and it's tennis court where the tennis court was.
Okay.
A real tennis court.
All right.
It's a dry,
Okay.
tennis court. So I got hit. I ran after the ball to pick up the ball, and my father was literally in the process of this big iron gate was now off the hinges, and it was on its way down.
Oh.
Being a big iron gate, it's on its way down. And that is when I ran to get the ball at that exact time, and the gate hit me on the head.
Oh gosh.
And that's why I've got this thing, a dent sometime on the head. But also here, I got a scar here, so I bled a lot. And I was taken to hospital, and actually my father was absolutely distraught and all the rest of it. But years later, in 1994, when I was at the International UFO Congress, the third one in the Showboat Hotel, and I recorded the traumatic and absolutely horrendous interview with Ray Wardle, which I think I'll put up separately on YouTube. I think it's Basis 2, Part 3, I think. Could be Part 2. Ray Wardle was an Italian American, and he Italian Anglophile, and he lived in southeast London with his parents, but he was got a job in the States, and way back in 1992 or 91 or whatever it is, when the 30th anniversary of the British UFO Research Association is when I met Ray Wardle. And he came over to see me, and he started giving me loads of tapes, and we started exchanging stuff, because I could play American video. I had a TV set which I could always make sure I could play American video. Multi-standard, which was very, very rare in those days. Nowadays you just put on a DVD, it doesn't matter what the hell it is, your computer will play it.
Yeah.
But in those days, if you had an American VHS tape or an American 8mm tape, or high 8 as it became, unless you had that camera, you couldn't play it. And a lot of people would buy their cameras over in the States thinking they're a lot cheaper, and then they'd come back here and it was all the different TVs.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, that was a very important connection.
Okay.
And at that UFO Congress, Ray and I, we spent some time in the desert, and I recorded some stuff out at Red Rock Canyon, just out of Las Vegas. And Red Rock Canyon's got extraterrestrial rock in it. It's sort of rock from a meteor or something.
Okay.
And he'd recorded lots of really fantastic UFOs where they're flying straight into the cliff face in Red Rock Canyon. So we went out there, and he used to show me the videos. If you froze frame, if you did a freeze frame on his camera, you get two objects, because a TV picture, every whole TV picture is made of two scans, and then they interlace the pictures like that. That's how a TV picture works.
Okay.
Right. So the thing is, his pictures had two objects in it, but it was actually the same object.
Yeah.
Because between the first scan, the first 250 odd lines with American TV, you got an image, and then with the second scan, it was interlaced with the first scan, which gives you your full 1/30th of a second frame of American TV. It's actually 129.97th of a frame, but anyway, of a second, you got two images. Now that means that in 1/60th of a second, roughly 1/60th of a second, that object has moved from that position to this position. And because you know how long a TV line is, because how long it takes to scan each line, you can tell how fast that object's travelled.
Oh, right, okay.
Right, because you got a measurement and a defined time.
Yeah.
And that defined time is 1/60th of a second. So in 1/60th of a second, it's taken that, between that bit and that bit, to travel so many microseconds.
Okay.
Right? And that gives you speed. So we were talking of him capturing objects traveling at something like 6,000-7,000 miles an hour.
Ooh.
Depends on the gap.
Yeah.
Flying straight into a cliff outside Las Vegas. Basically, bingo, we got evidence of alien craft of some kind of massive speed flying straight into a brick rock, a rock cliff.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's no. So that's it's some kind of masked entrance to some kind of.
Yeah.
So that was evidence that there was something really weird going on.
Oh.
And so the bottom line was, Ray had other footage where he'd be up there in his free time, up those rocks and whatever, where that all was happening. And he gave me some video, and this is all on Basis 2, a video of actually a rock moving.
Yeah.
Because it's a camera.
Right.
And he'd found an underground base, because there was a rock way up there which was moving.
Okay.
Because they wanted the whole place was totally shielded, but why else have a moving rock?
Yeah.
The damn thing's a camera. Why is there a camera there? It's because they want to check who's there.
Yeah.
Because there's a bloody base underneath.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So this was further evidence he'd got. So he was getting really close to real ET, US government or secret government activity with aliens in the Las Vegas area.
Yeah.
And remember, this is just after Area 51's been found out and the Bob Lazar stuff. Only a couple of years. It's really a hot time when there's a huge amount of stuff, and he's got that material.
Okay.
And it was wonderful that he also gave me the things he'd recorded off air with George Knapp and Bob Lazar and John Lear, and I've got those on VHS American NTSC tape at home.
Yeah.
And it was just really good fun stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my God, look at this. And then Richard Hoagland's stuff about the face on Mars was coming out at the same time, and he'd been in the United Nations, and I got that as well. And there was also an extremely good documentary this was the climate, was just wow, all this stuff happening. The very good documentary called Forbidden Archaeology with Charlton Heston, where they showed the strange water weathering of the Sphinx, indicating the Sphinx is a lot older, and all that sort of stuff was all on American TV.
Okay.
And you get it. We were able to get the documentary and everything else. Whole pile of stuff. Of course, none of this ever hit the British television, which is so out of date.
Yeah.
But I was able to get some of that kind of material. We actually got some of the Face on Mars stuff broadcast in a documentary on Sky News.
Wow.
I got about 4 or 5 documentaries on Sky News, and I just found 4 of them on my archive. And I hope to put that on YouTube. It's obviously Sky News copyright, but the point is getting round to it. Ray, because he was really making a lot of waves, he was interrogated by two of the lecturers at the International UFO Congress and a third person, a woman, and he went through hell. And I caught him wandering around the hotel in a completely distraught state.
Wow.
So I took him to my hotel room. I set my camera up on the bed, sat him down beside the TV, and recorded the interview with Ray Wardle.
Okay.
Now the point is, we just recorded it in a completely silent bedroom. Now my bedroom at the hotel was at the end of the block. Strangely, just like my hotel room was where I slept this morning, at the end of the block. That means that they can have somebody outside the hotel beaming something in from a truck or something like that.
Okay.
That was before we had even heard of targeted individuals or psychotronic weapons. I mean, a few people had heard about psychotronic radio beams, microwaves, stuff like that, or scalar energetic technology beaming into the hotel room. When I got back to the UK, things happened in that hotel room which were absolutely horrendous. After that interview, I went to see. That's when I was getting hit. That's when I took a hit. So he took a hit, I took a hit, and I was in a situation where after I recorded that interview, I suddenly realised really a learning curve going right up.
Yeah.
Holy shit, something's going on here.
Yeah.
So I talked to there was a friend who I met, a very lovely lady, and she twigged there were about 8 greys in my hotel room.
Wow.
She picked up the energy. Now, that's when I just had to sort of go with it. The crucial thing was, at the Congress, they announced that nobody was allowed to stay on in the hotel. They all had to leave. We all had to leave our rooms. So some people wanted to stay on. They all told you can't do that. You all got to leave. But when it came to me, I was told, "Oh, no problem, sir. You can stay on. No problem." So I was able to stay on. But that's why I asked the question: was I like to stay on? Was I was staying there longer than the Congress was. I was seeing Ray, and he was in a hell of a state. Things were really going really seriously badly wrong. Now on that recording, I'll not go there just for a sec. So I had to get out of that hotel room, and we'd flagged up. This other lady realised that there's something really wrong here. There's really serious grey energy. Something terrible is on in this room. You cannot stay another night in there. So we got the hell out. And that is when I ended up staying in the Luxor Hotel. And I still have a t-shirt, a wonderful gold-plated t-shirt, which I put in the hot wash once and all the gold came off, which was just a black. So anyway, the Luxor Hotel is this huge pyramid hotel, which has got a laser out of the top of it. Now that was one of the biggest, most dramatically new hotels in Las Vegas at the time. And in fact, the Showboat Hotel that we were in has long since been knocked down. And that hotel had this laser thing, and it was very, very close to McCarran Field, which is Las Vegas Airport.
Okay.
So that was a big event, and then that's when healing had to be done on me and these other people I was with. They had to call in other entities, and they called all these other entities in, and they really serious stuff. And there was various things I heard in the room, clicks and all the sorts of things which happened, indicating that other things. The temperature dropped, all sorts of things like that. Yeah. So basically, I was. They basically, did some protection work on me, and this is all before I knew all of this stuff. What are these people on? But there was clearly something really serious happening because Ray was in a hell of a state. Yeah. And I'd done the recording, and there was this very serious. He was just very disturbing. Wow. And that interview, I was warned was somehow programmed, so I actually tried to delete it. I actually put it in a thing and hit play and record, and to erase that interview, and that didn't happen. The VHS did not erase that interview. So it was many years later when I could start editing on VHS that I did Basis 2 as a VHS tape, and that I actually released I transferred to beta, broadcast beta, and I used the studio to put some basic graphics on it, and that was then put together as 2 master tapes, and that was put out on a thing called Bases, and there was part 1 and 2, and they had Bill Newhouse and all sorts of things on it, and that was then released as a commercial videotape in 2 parts. And about 15 years later, when Colin, the famous Colin Wolford from Bases, he came, he stayed in my house for a while, and he bought that VHS tape.
Wow.
And he presented it to me. Hello, Miles, and I never saw. Never got a penny for that. I never received anything on it. So that was my first commercial venture, which I never got. The Bases.
How did you not get paid?
Well, they do that. Once you give these people the manuscript or the master tape, goodbye.
Oh.
You know, we've got it. No contract.
You don't break legs then or anything like that?
Well, no, he actually came up, the guy who did this actually came up to see me. Because years later I saw it advertised as a DVD on Amazon, and it was my stuff.
Oh.
And I sort of mentioned this. And he says, I'll come and see you. It was no good anyway. And what these publishers do, nobody bought it. No, it was crap and nobody bought it. It was your stuff. And John Irwin, lots of other authors have had this problem.
Yeah.
You just take your thing and just shaft you.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it? You can actually buy it in Germany. Available in Germany. You can actually look it up. You can actually order it. For some reason, part 2 is available, but nobody could get part 1. The point was that when I got back to the UK and played that tape, in the room, there was an unbearable swishing white noise, swirling noise, making the audio virtually unintelligible.
Oh.
Now the point was that noise at the time, the room was perfectly silent.
Wow.
But something was being targeted at the room while I was interviewing Ray, who was in a distraught state. He'd gone through hell. And that noise had somehow gone into the electronics of the camera. Now the point is that the level of noise is the level of that noise changed depending on the meaning of the content of what was about to be said or spoken, or what the question was. So when there was no really, you can actually hear subtle clicks and sort of ordinary normal noises, like if somebody put their hand, or like if you did this or whatever. Those noises were very audible. The other thing that was happening was that the autofocus on the camera was going ballistic. It was focusing on something else, and it was determined that there was something else on Ray's shoulder. So he kept doing this, and he kept moving his head because there's something, he was in a hell of a state.
Yeah.
And it's an extremely distressing interview. It's also extremely difficult to watch because of the noise.
Yeah.
So then eventually, what happened was, I was met by a member of British Psychic Intelligence, who met me virtually off the plane, with my other colleague in the Irish UFO Research Centre, a guy called Danny in Belfast. And I was basically interrogated by this guy over about 20 cups of coffee, a couple of jugs of coffee, for a whole afternoon, if not leading into the evening. Wow. And whatever Ray had happened, and whatever had happened in that hotel room, had British intelligence come to see me using a new recruit into their intelligence psychics warfare thing. He was that particular individual was an absolutely first-rate remote viewer, telepath, and could deal with the ETs. He could also deal with the entities that protected the Standing Stones and the Dolmens and all sorts of things like that. In fact, he was brought in when a BBC crew, or possibly a BBC crew, or a documentary crew was going into certain Standing Stones in Ireland. Their equipment was just going bananas because the guardians of the stones were attacking the BBC's equipment. Which goes to show that should be a big alarm bell about who's really running the BBC.
Yeah.
When these guardians, these ancient guardians which were there over millennia to protect those gateways and stones, would attack that. So he was used to liaise with these beings, these energy beings who were protecting the stones, so they could do a documentary. And they did so, and then they stopped attacking. They literally was taking their etheric swords and their spears and actually attacking the BBC's or the documentary makers' equipment. So he was, so that's how high he was. So he was.
Just what I call a cigarette.
Yeah.
Carry on talking. Carry on.
Am I carrying on?
Yeah.
Well, on the basis that that won't be edited out, the point is that that was when I find out that. Sorry, when are you going to turn down that noise? It's going to be really loud. That.
No, it's not on today.
No, I've closed the door.
Okay.
Anyway, okay,
Yeah.
right. The point is that the room had been judged, but something else was in the room.
Mm-hmm.
The infrared, the camera's autofocus was continually focusing on something else, so you could see the focus shift. And subsequently, when I got back to the UK, the other thing which had happened with the camera was that the case the camera was in had been deliberately badly damaged. This was one of those aluminium flight cases, and they had really made sure of what was in there. And they actually distorted the chassis of the camera. And I had to get the camera repaired. And they did their best, but they said that the camera's actual chassis was actually slightly bent. And from that moment on, I got a terrible rumbling sound on the audio. There was nothing wrong with the actual audio of the camera. What had happened was it had been exposed to something. So they actually fixed the camera. This is what was called a Super VHS camera. It was the best camera you could buy at the time. Crap little lens, very poor light sensitivity, but it was Super VHS. It was like 40% better resolution than normal VHS. And eventually that camera was stolen a long time ago later. And that was pretty good. It was, the bottom line is that the sensor with these earlier cameras just didn't have the light sensitivity, which is that people are used to nowadays. There's always been a problem with the earlier cameras, but it was CCD, it was solid state, it was Super VHS, so that was the best you were going to get. So the point was that the autofocus was damaged by whatever it had been exposed to in the hotel room. This had recorded this swishing noise onto the camera, which didn't happen on any other occasion. That swishing noise when I recorded Ray at other places was in a room where there was a trace of it still behind in the room where he had actually been interrogated. But in the interview we go back to that event. Now I then, years later, used polycontrast interference photography by Dr. The guy from Wales. Oh, what's his name? Oldfield. The guy called Harry Oldfield. And he spoke at a lot of Nexus conferences.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
And I actually sent my material off to them, and they analysed it and said, hey, Jesus, there's something. At the time that when I went into the room where he'd been interviewed, they noticed something. They noticed there was something outside the hotel. Now, I used to have long conversations with Harry Oldfield's assistant or son, whoever was there. We'd have like an hour and a half sometimes, phone conversations about lots of stuff.
Wow.
And soon after that, I bought, his technology was really expensive. It was £300 or £400 to buy the software which would allow you to retroactively analyze video from something you'd seen recorded in the past. And I also bought a number of his optical diffraction filters, I think refraction filters, because they would break up the light for a video camera to see live by simply changing the refraction of the light. You can start seeing other elements which are in the light.
Oh.
So, for instance, if you want to see the human aura,
Yeah.
you simply get two Polaroid glasses. A Polaroid filter is polarized in one direction,
Yeah.
and you rotate that. And if you get one Polaroid filter and put it over the lens of your camera,
Yeah.
and the other Polaroid filter and put it over the lens of the camera, and move them around, if you hold it like that, it'll be completely blank.
Yeah.
But if you rotate it with 100% 90 degrees, you can then rotate that 90 to it relatively round like that, and then you're able to see optically with your own eyes,
Yeah.
because you're sending polarized light.
Yeah.
Now you have to do this in 100% darkness.
Okay.
You can't have any scattered light reflecting off anything else.
Mm.
You have to have one source of light which goes through this polarizing filter, and then you will see with your eyes
Yeah.
the electrical auric field leaving your fingers. You can actually do this and put your hands together. You actually see like electrical discharges going through your hands optically, because you are polarizing the light, using polarized light.
Okay.
So this is something which is very, very important. So what happens is with Harry Oldfield's diffraction grating thing is that you're doing something a bit like that, and that allows you to see a whole lot of things which are in plain sight.
Wow.
Now the point is, people who've got the right kind of eyes and they've trained their brain properly can actually optically see the auric fields as well.
Yeah.
And then of course you can extend it up to alien implants and energy disturbances in the human aura and all this stuff.
Okay.
So that, you see, that's because we look at things in scattered light, and we also look at it in a very restricted visual range.
Yeah.
And also the centre of our eyes are very poor in resolution. They're sensitive to colour, and they are the outer edges of the eye are sensitive to edges. So, and then the brain only looks at about the middle 4% in the middle of our vision in terms of scanning for a high resolution image, which is why we can see a TV set so far away and make a sense of the picture.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is that video was analysed by British Psychic Intelligence, without mentioning any names, and they stared at that with extreme interest. And then it was also analysed by European Psychic Intelligence.
Mm.
They took extreme interest in that interview. And the point was that, going back to this gate that fell on me when I was 5 or 4.5 or 6 or whatever age it was, that's when an attempt had been made to target me and take me out by nefarious agencies, because I had gone through a lot of trauma as a child, because they had implanted something into my head to self-terminate, to bump me off, and to use the opportunity of the sudden impact
Of that gate.
to do that.
Yeah.
Now that came from a very high level US psychic help squad,
Yeah.
right? And that was that they found that and removed it and got rid of it. So that was one of the first attempts to bump me off.
Oh, wow.
So there's been a number of, and then I think there was another time when I was wandering with the children near Enniskillen. I remember one of the round towers, I think on a Sunday afternoon. There's some lovely lakes near Enniskillen, and it's a great place, and I'm pretty convinced we had an abduction situation there, but I don't remember anything about that, you know.
Okay.
There's also the time with a lovely lady, very civilized South African lady called Valia, and she was around at that time. We used to go to her apartment. There used to be UFO type meetings by the Travelling Earth Mystery Society in her wonderful apartments in the South Bank here in London.
Oh, right.
And that was before all these other new apartments had been built. Valia's a very, very lovely lady, very civilized South African lady, and we still know each other very well to this day. And they had a pretty plush apartment. And as I say, the earliest meetings there with the wonderful Mary Seal, way back in 1991. Mary Seal was a brilliant woman who, before David Icke was doing anything, she held and created the Global Deception Conference in London at Wembley Arena in 1991, I think January 1991. So this is, within a year of me coming here and joined with Sky, that's the kind of stuff that I was doing. And Ray, it was the time with Ray Wardle, and he was there at Valia's place, and in fact, Valia and I were with Ray in the UFO Congress 1993, 94, and that was, I think, it was subsequently, I think, 94 that I interviewed Bill Newhouse, which is a year after that terrible thing with Ray in 94, I think it was 94, 95, or maybe it could be 93, 94. Anyway, that's all on basis too.
Okay.
So that I didn't compile that as a DVD until bloody years later.
Wow.
Because computers, I'd always wanted to buy a computer, and computers, in order to edit the video, were all far too slow. So I don't know when the hell I made the DVD, the first DVD of Basis. Because I was one of the first people up on YouTube. That must have been how long has YouTube been going? I was one of the first people on YouTube. One of the first.
2000, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was one of the first on that.
Okay.
Because my stuff's on there for years.
Wow.
And I was also with Google. Google, they allowed you to put movies up and that people could purchase.
Right.
So I put Basis up on that, and it was also the first time you could actually run a full film for an hour, whatever it is. But not too many people took advantage of that.
Okay.
And then my Google account was merged with my YouTube account, which is why I was one of the first people to put really long videos on YouTube.
Okay.
Now, obviously, I wasn't the first, but one of the first groups that could do that. And people always ask, "Man, how can you put more than 15 minutes on YouTube?"
Yeah.
So, which is a very good question.
Yeah, because YouTube allows it.
So anyway, the point was it was determined that something had been done, to attack and take me out.
Wow.
Right? When I was very young, and also at that thing in Las Vegas, they found there was evidence something had happened at that time.
Wow.
So they energetically sorted that out. But the girl who'd helped me at Las Vegas, when she was driving back from it, she was attacked by an entity which tried to throttle her and kill her while she was driving. So it was very, very clear that there were etheric or energetic attempts to take me out.
Yeah.
So the point is, in today's recent year or so, there's been at least two attempts last autumn, since the Max Spears thing, to energetically, toxically poison me with various snake venoms and death adder venoms and stuff like that. Energetically produce that into your auric field, and then that poison gets in.
Yeah.
And we're speaking today, right now, where there is a very prominent but little well-known individual who has done a massive amount for pushing the truth forward and getting information out there.
Oh, great.
And he is very, very seriously ill right now with a virus in his brain. And it's so rare that he's actually in an academic hospital as we speak. And so therefore what I'm saying is, publicly I'm saying that this is an energetic attack. So what I've done is do something which is going to basically put the ball back in whoever sent that energetic attacks court. And that will, to continue a metaphor, be game, set and match for those, whatever they are.
Wow. And
with any luck, with any focus, hopefully that individual will recover everything from this attack and he'll be okay. Hopefully that will be the case.
From that, would you be able to find out what it was?
Well, the symptoms this individual's got is a very rare brain virus. It's not like meningitis. I mean, meningitis is a brain virus, and it's one of these things where it does so much damage, you die. But the thing is that, or you want, I mean, to be honest, if it's done the damage, you don't want to come out. But we'll see. I don't know the name of the virus, but as in subsequent days after this recording, hopefully this individual will still be with us and will be on full form, and we wish him all the luck there is.
Alright, I'm stopping it now.